We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome back to Kayfabe Corner. I am your host, JPO, Jordan Pierce Owens, as I sit down with someone else involved in the world of professional wrestling. Today, I'm very excited to have one of my main mans, Zach Romero. You know him from Fully Gimmicked, commentary, ring announcing, running Punk Pro. Zach, how are you?
Doing fine, JP. Thank you so much. Also, I think it should be on record. You and I share a very special bond. We are the only time in my commentary career that I've gotten to do commentary for a full show while dressed as old wrestlers. You made an amazing Big Boss Man, and I was a mediocre Ted DiBiase. So we made history together, calling the action at ringside in cosplay.
First of all, I gotta credit you with everything back because I basically just wore a blue shirt, and I think you helped me with the glasses and the pins and the little patches. So
no, I was the MacGyver of costuming that night, but no, I'm thrilled to be on the show. I really am.
Good times at a company that we
can't talk about anymore. So I was gonna say one of many topics. I'm sure we'll go. Can't talk about that tonight. That's 2020, baby.
That's 2020, dude. Looking upon the past, but we're very vague about the past.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're in 2020, got to open up with just how are you doing? Like literally, like how are you? Are you coping? Are you good?
Surviving's the best way I can put it. We've been putting on some weird projects as best we can. We've hit some highs and some lows, and the cabin holding off cabin fever for as long as possible. So surviving is the best I can put it.
Did you enjoy the Cabin Fever remake?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Just came to mind.
I feel it was unnecessary, really. I mean, don't get me wrong.
More or less.
So here's the thing. My problem is my favorite Eli Roth project ever was his trailer for Thanksgiving in the Grindhouse movie. So that's not a great starting point already. Yeah. That my favorite of his features is like 2 minutes long and very obnoxious. That being said, Cabin Fever, I could take it or leave it. I remember him pouring the Listerine on his junk. That sticks in my head. And the kid doing karate out in front of the general store. That's really all I remember from that movie. So yeah, remake, very unnecessary. I was actually trying to think about this, and we may have to have you on one of our podcasts to discuss this, of when is a remake actually worth it? Because in many, many cases, the answer is never. But I think there's a few out there. I need to do a little more studying, but I think there's a few out there that
I'm a big champion of the new Invisible Man.
That's true. That's true.
They had a different twist on it, you know.
And John Carpenter's The Thing, that being a reimagining and remake. I think that's an excellent one.
Oh my god! And what a great movie.
I liked the remake of Fright Night with David Tennant and Colin Farrell. I liked that one.
A lot of fun.
And there's a few more that are out there that I think.
For sure. When you start thinking about it, I mean, a great point, and a lot of them are unnecessary, but there's definitely several out there.
Yeah, that I think are at least somewhat justified. None of them are completely like, thank God they did this instead. But I think there's some that are like, it's passable.
You got to have at least a slightly different take, and you know, something to where you're gonna go not just simply like, okay, it was well made, but like for instance, you mentioned The Thing. What about the other thing, the third thing? Like that's a good example of
completely unnecessary.
It's not a horrible film by a large degree, but at the same time, it's like it's okay. You just did The Thing.
Yeah. No, you know what the best part of the third one, which was the prequel to the second one,
right? Before
the best part of that movie is the last 40 seconds of the movie when it becomes John Carpenter's The Thing. Like there's one survivor left. There's the dog that's possessed by the alien. And then we start getting the synth music in, and I saw it in the theater. And as soon as the synth music kicked in, I sat straight up, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And then the dog runs out of the kennel, and the guy's chasing after it, and you're like, "Oh, it's the good one! We got to the good one finally!" And then we cut to credits. So that's not a good sign.
You're hoping it would turn into a double feature. You could just start. Watching.
If it would have, I would have been like, totally worth it. You know, my favorite part of that prequel was that it was 5.5 hours long. That was my favorite part of the prequel, and it really picked up in the second half.
All right, I suppose, and we probably will delve off maybe more than once here. Let's talk about wrestling, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. On a wrestling podcast, probably should.
if we have to. Um, where do you begin in wrestling in general? Not as a partaker, but just as a fan. Are you a fan growing up? Where does wrestling first come in the world of Zach Romero?
That's a great question. So I was born. I'm going to immediately date myself. I'm going to turn to a skeleton right here. I was born in '88. So my parents were, and I was born in Virginia. So my parents were taking me to wrestling. I mean, you're looking at like Mega Powers, SummerSlam kind of era. So my parents were taking me at a young age. There's photos of me with, all kinds of old wrestlers and stuff like that. So wrestling was always kind of big in my family. And, I'm growing up. We're getting into the doldrums of the WWF. We're getting into the early 90s. I should say mid 90s. Early 90s were still okay. Mid 90s, not so much. And then I'm like probably 12 or 13, and the Attitude Era starts picking up, and I jumped back in with both feet. So yeah, I've been a wrestling fan for a long, long time, but you kind of hit ebbs and flows and waves and stuff like that. And so I had somewhat kind of kept up with wrestling when I got a little older, and then when I met my wife, she was a girlfriend at the time. We were driving up in this small town, and there were these posters for something called FCW, and it had a very dumpy Bo Dallas on the poster. And so they were plastered all over this town. And so we would drive past and we'd laugh. We're like, oh my God, look at this. And finally, because they were up for like 2 months before the show, finally we go, you know what the hell? Let's go see what fun we have. And we went and saw it at the Brooksville Armory, and we were completely just enamored. We were like, this is amazing, getting to see it so intimately, and we got lucky. It was like there was Bo Dallas, and you had Damien Sandow like starting the robe and that kind of shtick. You had Cesaro was starting to show up. You had Dean Ambrose, Leaki, who became Roman Reigns, and we just had it was a good time to fall into it because there was a lot of like up and coming talent going through there. So then that led to, wow, this is really great, and we'd come every time they'd show up. And then that led into seeing Shine Women's Wrestling in Ybor, and then I met Chad Allen, who became my podcast co-host at the Wrestling Nerds Radio Network. We did the IndieCast. That was like 7 years ago. And so then we started hitting the ground running. We were going to every indie show in Ybor. And then we start chatting with people because I'm very obnoxious and my wife is very cute. So a lot of people are willing to talk to us. And so we befriend some of the staff. Frankie Gastineau was one of our first friends as a referee. David Puente is cameraman. We were just chatting with them in between matches and became pals. And then I met Trevin Adams, and boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, we're making merchandise, and then I'm told that I'm very obnoxious, and do I think I could potentially be obnoxious in front of people? And I said, yes, of course. So then I started doing ring announcing and that led to commentary and all kinds of behind the scenes nuttiness. And now I own a wrestling company, and everything's a mess, and it's pretty fantastic. So it's about 7 years or so that I've fallen into this beautiful melting pot of a disaster that is Florida wrestling.
Yeah, those FCW shows were fun, by the way. I was right there too during that house show era. I saw Bo Dallas's very first match. I found out later on. I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's his first ever match. Meeting so many people. Daniel Bryan before anyone cared who he was.
Yes. I had a really, really weird moment with Big E, because he was just dominating at the time. They had like just gotten him figured out. Obviously, this is way before the New Day. This is way before he was AJ Lee's bodyguard. Like, he's just murdering people in FCW. And he was fighting Enzo Amore and just destroys him. And there was this moment where he hoisted up Enzo and just I think it was a fallaway slant, something. He just destroyed him in the ring. And he went to go pick him up again, and he stopped, and the crowd's like going nuts or whatever. And I swear to you, he looked right at me, Like we made it because I'm in like the second row. We're like within like spitting distance of each other. It's not like I'm standing all the way in the back. It's like I'm right here. I'm like 10 feet away. He looks right at me and he's just staring at me for a moment. And the crowd's all like, do it again, do it again. And he looks at me like, what do we do? And I looked at him and I just gave him the nod like the emperor, like, and he just hoisted Enzo up and just smashed the soul out of his body. And it was a super weird moment. Also, said a lot of filthy things to, I chanted a lot of filthy things to Ricky Steamboat Jr. because that guy was really handsome. I don't know why, just the spirit took over. And I was like, hey, how's that dick or whatever? And everyone was like, whoa. And he was like, hey, that's not okay.
Yeah, geez.
Got a little rambunctious in my early days as a fan of FCW, and that's probably why they don't come to Brooksville anymore.
That's why Richie Steamboat quit. He just couldn't.
He was like, there was a really creepy beardy guy who was saying that I had like really toned legs while I was wrestling, and it was really weird. And I'm done. And he faked a back injury.
Yeah, sorry, Dad. I'm out.
That's a great. I wish if I can find it, I'll send it to you. There's a photo of me at like, this is like the second FCW we went to, and Ricky Steamboat Sr. was there, and so digging pictures or whatever. So there's a photo of me standing in between Ricky Steamboat Sr. and Ricky Steamboat Jr. And I'm like, my body language, I'm like shitting on Ricky Steamboat Jr. because I hadn't seen him wrestle yet. And I'm like, oh, I'm here for his dad. I don't give a shit about this guy. And then lo and behold, he's wrestling, and I was like, oh my God, I love you. And it was just very, very strange. That was one of the first times I ever felt love for another man like that. And then he faked a back injury and decided to quit wrestling. So
you scared him off.
I did.
People have been wondering for years. Now we know the full story. So what happened to Richie Steamboat?
I'll say you got the exclusive. I haven't told that story before. So there you go. You've got the exclusive. I ruined Ricky Steamboat Jr.'s career.
I always enjoyed too. SCW always had like people who weren't working on staff, so I always enjoyed Bray Wyatt. Showed me to my seats one day. Big E was security one night. Baron Corbin and Skinner sold me a hot dog.
I have a photo of me standing next to Chris Hero when he had just gotten signed, and he's working security. Like he's got the orange polo on, and I'm like, because I know who he is, but nobody else here knows who he is. I'm like, oh my God, yeah.
I was that must have been just a weird mind thing of like Chris Hero. I remember Alex Kozlov was security one time. I'm like, this dude was in the Tokyo Dome last year, and now he's literally going like, boop, okay, row 3's over here. Like,
yeah, a little humbling.
Yeah, it's gotta be a little bit of a mind twerp.
Yeah, a little strange. I got to see Bray Wyatt before his last FCW match before he made his big debut on TV. Because we were the test. Because Bray Wyatt is originally from Brooksville. And so when he started developing the character, they took him off the FCW shows because he was trying to be a heel and trying to be creepy, and that's very difficult in your hometown. The whole leading up to the Montreal Screwjob, Bret Hart is booed everywhere else but cheered in Canada. Like it's very difficult to be a villain in your hometown, and it already instantly. And it always irritates me when they try anyway, especially WWE, when they're like, yeah, William Regal, I know we're in England and everybody loves you, but, cheat a bunch and lose like an asshole because we want to see if we can get people to boo you. And it's like, don't waste your time. They're going to love you. That's it. So I'm seeing all these clips online of these Bray Wyatt promos, and I'm like, oh, my God, these are amazing. And we go to FCW, and he wouldn't be there. We'd be like, what the hell happened? Because they were keeping him away because it's very difficult to get that character over in your hometown, especially when you were getting cheered all the way up to it. So we're at this FCW show, and he's in the main, and he comes out and he cuts this promo about like, this town's in my blood and blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like, oh, yay. And then he flipped it around and like, blah, blah, blah. You're all scummy people. Yeah. And that place booed the shit out of him. And that was like, I guess, the icing on the cake. Was it like, all right, he's ready for prime time. He got his hometown to boo him. And so after that, the next week he was on Raw. And so we got to be like part of his like farewell send off.
It's always fun seeing people try stuff out, and sometimes it works, sometimes it does not.
I used to rant and rave about the genius of Damien Sandow in FCW. Like, he was so over the top, and it was so good. And they did like next to none of it on TV. Like once he got up to like SmackDown and all that, they just completely threw 99% out of it, like out of the window. It was.
I know. I remember like telling my brother who doesn't live in Florida, like, no, watch this guy. He's so entertaining, and then being like, no, really, I swear he's entertaining. Just
No, it felt like the Michigan J. Frog cartoon. You're like, no, he's gonna dance at any moment. I swear to God. And it's like, no, nothing. So disappointing.
I know. The same thing with like Scotty Goldman. My brother was like, this dude's horrible. I'm like, no, I swear, Cabana's really talented. They
just give him a minute. Just give him a minute. Yeah.
Oh man, going back, doing the rewind here on a VHS tape.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm doing this dance, but
clear VHS dance.
When you're young, who's someone that draws you? Like who's someone that you were connected to? Who's your main dude?
So I dressed up as Macho Man Randy Savage for Halloween when I was like 8. So Macho Man definitely spoke to me. When I was older, when I was like in the Attitude Era, I definitely dressed up as Road Dogg Jesse James for Halloween, which I think is very shameful these days to admit.
Well, Road Dogg's awesome, man. I don't think it is.
I'm gonna keep you as my defense on that. But actually, the thing that I find interesting is seeing wrestlers who you hated as a kid that you look back now and you're like, oh my God, they were geniuses. Like I didn't like Ted DiBiase at all. I thought he was just terrible. Like, oh, boo. And I go back and watch him now and I'm like, what a brilliant performer. Like what just an absolute genius at doing his job so well that I, as a kid, was like, he should be fired and never come back. Like he did a great job. But no, I was definitely a Macho Man kid. Absolutely. And I go back and rewatch it now. I love, everybody talks about the cream of the crop promo. There's like all kinds of t-shirts about the cream of the crop promo where he like pulls a little milk creamer out of like he's like a magician. He pulls it out, one's out of Mean Gene's pocket and one from here and over there. But there's actually a whole series of promos in that exact same era where he was just an amateur magician for a while. Like there was one where like I think he's talking about Tito Santana and he's talking about how he's just going to be in the limelight just long enough to get a cup of coffee. And Macho Man drops his like cape that he's got and he's holding a tiny cup of coffee that he got from catering. And then like there's one about like he talks about someone being nothing but garbage and he stole like a tiny garbage can from somebody's cubicle. Like there's a whole series of him being a magician. And I really love that. I think that's really fantastic. And the thing about Macho Man's promos is like, yeah, they're all funny and haha, but he was so intense and there was a true unpredictability to him, both in and out of the ring, that even though he would say something that's crazy or something that you would laugh at later, in the moment, you believed it. Like a perfect example, when the Mega Powers blow up, I'm like Father Time on this episode. So the Mega Powers is Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. They're teaming up for the first time. Holy shit. Things go south quickly. Miss Elizabeth gets hurt, who was Macho Man's wife, and Macho Man loses his mind. And so now he's coming to kill Hulk Hogan. And there's a promo where Macho Man is so veiny and so angry, and he tells Hulk Hogan that he's sick of his hot dogging and prima donna. And what if you write it down, you're like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But he's so angry and so intense that you're like, yeah, hot dogging, yeah. I'm gonna see a dead body. Great. Like it works because he really gives it his all. And that's something that I wish I could teach younger talent. Not like, hey, go be Macho Man and do God knows what and maybe cocaine. Like, no, but like there should be a level of intensity to what you're saying and a level of there should be a piece of you in it. You know, it shouldn't just be. It drives me nuts seeing promos from younger wrestlers where you can just see the look on their faces. They're like, I got to remember the date. I got to remember the date of the show. And you're like, you'll get there. You can fix that in editing, but make me believe that you're really going to do this fight, that you're really wanting to be a part of this, or you really have a score to settle, or you want this gold. Make me believe that first. We can throw the date in at the end. It's not a big deal. You know, I would much rather you forget to bring up like the date of the show, and I would much prefer you be just genuine and like, okay, I have to be there and see this show. Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question I'd love to ask you about. I agree. I agree with that. I don't think everyone every time needs to say the venue, the date, the location. It starts to get a little too, like you said, scripted. And especially when it's a passionate promo. As you said, if someone really wants to see the match, I think they're going to find out when the match is, or you put
right,
it on.
or again, we can edit that. We can just slap it on the bottom while you're talking. We can be like, it's going to be on August the 2nd and da, 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 da. Like, we can do that. The magic of technology allows me to put that there. Don't worry about hitting that. If that's the thing you're most concerned with, don't worry about it. One thing, so I, in the weird, and you've seen this personally, the weirdness of things that I've worked with in wrestling. You know, I've gotten to do a little bit of promo work with some wrestlers, and I enjoy that a great deal. I do. I really think that's a lot of fun. The problem is I don't feel like I'm a very good teacher. Basically what my method is, okay, wrestler A is fighting wrestler B, and here's the setup. Basically, I cut the promo at wrestler A, and then when I'm done, I'm like, now you do that. Like, I struggle in that department. If I could, I would just cut everybody's promos for them. I would just be like, all right, here, let me do it. I'll put a wig on. I'll pretend I'm you. We'll deep fake you onto me, and we'll call it a day. That is one thing that I haven't done in wrestling, that there's a part of me that wishes I could, is to do like, to be like somebody's manager or something like that, and like just cut a promo about like, here's why this guy's great or whatever. I had an opportunity to do it a while ago, a couple years ago, and I was advised by those more knowledgeable than I to turn that down and to focus on ring announcing, to focus on commentary, and focus on being that guy. And I did. And it paid off. It certainly paid off. But there's still a part of me that I'm like, oh, I would love to just stand in front of a crowd and call them all sweat hogs and just be a real dickhead. You know, there's definitely still a part of that. And as you've seen,
gotta scratch that itch one time. It's fun.
I was just gonna say, well, you've seen, there's been a couple of times during ring announcing that I've kind of done that. A few moments that slips out. If I'm, talking about like, hey, this next contest is for the women's title of blah blah blah, and the crowd doesn't treat that with the proper reverence, I've been known to hit the brakes on a show before and go, no, we're going to do that again, and you're going to care because this is a big deal. So there's a little bit of that kind of comes out every once in a while because I'm not a very professional performer, but maybe someday I'll be a full manager and tell somebody why this guy who has trouble speaking in front of crowds is actually great and you should root for him or boo him or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you tell us in you, man. You gotta get that out in you at least a couple of times. It's right. Fun. It's fun.
I'll just start sending you promos against wrestlers who don't exist or are retired.
I do love the deep fake idea though, because it's hard getting promos from people sometimes. I would love to just do it myself.
Right, just be like, all right, here, I'm just gonna cut it. We'll have weird lighting. It'll be edited later, and we'll just deep fake you on top of me, and it'll be perfect. Don't worry about it. We're getting close. We're getting close. Yeah. Right now, we're in the weird deep fake stage of ha ha ha. I put this very masculine man's face on a lady's body. We're in that stage right now, but eventually, who knows?
What about this? Like, would you ever buy like a virtual wrestling tape where it's like if WWE just started deep faking like Owen Hart versus Eddie Guerrero? Would you watch it?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Because they're saying actors are gonna start. They're gonna start reusing actors in new movies. They're gonna start seeing James Dean again.
Yeah. He's gonna.
I started thinking like, is wrestling gonna do that?
Why is James Dean gonna be in a Vietnam movie? That's the thing. Oh. Bring him for why? Of anything, do it something of that era. So you go, oh yeah, great. But yeah, Peter.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Wrestling, maybe.
Peter Cushing was in Rogue One, even though he's dead forever. Yeah, you're right. That would be so interesting to actually do. So in this hypothetical, we're talking about we got two. So let's say we've got Oh, geez, who would be like a decent? Who's a modern Owen Hart that we could throw in there?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I could just do. Eddie Guerrero versus AJ Styles. Like, I don't know. There's so many different like things we never
But I was
saw.
thinking, I'm trying to think, how are we going to do this and make money and get a cease and desist? We get
Oh,
Marcos
how can we
Espada.
do it?
We get Marcos
Oh,
Espada to play Eddie Guerrero,
we
and
got
then
the
who?
money for this though, man. We got money for all this, do we?
I, I don't know how expensive is deepfake technology. I've seen the stuff
Oh.
that like, there's those YouTube videos where it's like, oh, here's what the Irishman looked like when they tried to make Robert De Niro look young, and then here's what I did with a free program that I downloaded, and it looks 1,000 times better. So I don't know. Maybe it's not that hard.
Maybe, yeah.
But I just don't know who we could have play pretend Owen Hart. And
Hunter Law.
definitely. Oh, maybe. Yeah, Hunter might be able to do that. I don't know. I've never looked at Hunter and thought of him as a nugget, but maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying to just think of who's at least really good. And
Oh, you want like a good
Espada
match?
could be
Yeah, that's
Guerrero.
true. That's true.
Well, we got to have a good match because we got to do the match right,
Oh,
and then
how sad
replace
would
the
that
faces.
be if it was like you and me, and like you're Owen Hart and I'm Eddie Guerrero, and the match is a disaster. We're like, no, it's the same. It's basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing.
One man gang versus King Kong Bundy. I don't know.
That's exactly. That's exactly what it would be. That's 100% what it would be. Now that would be really interesting. I don't know. I guess I would. I'd be interested to see that because you know what? Dark Side of the Ring is coming pretty close. Like when they do the the interludes when they'll be like, oh, and then New Jack took a shit and stabbed somebody, and they'll have somebody dressed as New Jack acting it out for a second. Like they're getting pretty close.
I think, what was it? Tyson Dukes was Chris Benoit.
Yeah. So like and by the way, we got our obligatory Chris Benoit reference in this. So we're very edgy. We're a very edgy podcast. And we talk about Owen Hart. So there we go. We are the edgiest podcast that's ever been. No, I'd be interested. I really genuinely would. It's bad. It's morally bankrupt. It's not a good call, and it besmirches the lineage of the wrestlers involved. But yeah, sign me up. I'd be interested to see it.
I think the WWE is going to do it once they can figure out the technology, and then they're going to sell a DVD or two.
Absolutely.
Or special. The matches we never had.
Are you kidding me? Their first, if they could get deepfake figured out, their first action, like number one on the bulletin board, is deepfake of Owen Hart being like, "I forgive you, it's okay," and they're like, "There it is, we got it, ladies and gentlemen, it's all good in the hood." That would absolutely be their first.
Why does Owen sound like that? It's okay.
If I happen to die, it's no big deal. Enough is enough, and it's time for a change. Like, oh, see, that was his catchphrase. That's him. That's their number one priority. Then number two would be, all right, let's do matches that didn't happen. Deepfake technology used strictly for get out of jail free cards. That's exactly what the number one priority would be.
See? When is you starting into the business? You touched upon it a little bit before. What's the first step here? Is it announcing? Is it you doing the merch? What's the first step?
Merch was definitely the first. When we were frequenting the indie shows, we noticed that a lot of really, really talented wrestlers either had no merch or this was in the infancy of pro wrestling tees, but they were like, yeah, just go on prowrestlingtees.com and you can buy my shirt. And I'm like, dude, I will have already talked myself out of spending the money by the time I get home. Like, I need to make this bad decision right now. I can't wait, because if I wait, I'm not doing it.
I've been on the other end too, where I'm like, yeah, man, totally, I love you. And then you get home and you're like, I don't know, it's like $25 for shipment.
Yeah, exactly. You talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Anything. That's the thing. Whether it be merch or good feedback or anything on this earth, if you make it even the slightest bit complicated or difficult to do, you have drastically reduced people's willingness to do it. So with merch, you got to have it like 2/3 of the way into their hand and then be like, money? And then, hey, you can't be like, well, go over here, turn around 3 times. The secret password is this, then go online and maybe you can buy it there. It's now obviously in a pandemic, you can't be in front of people. So my free tidbit is, if you do have an online shop, whether it be Pro Wrestling Tees or Fully Gimmicked or What a Maneuver or any other, company out there, you need to be promoting it regularly because you don't have the opportunity to be in front of people. So instead, you got to make yourself interesting and be in front of people, be in their face to make them go, oh yeah, I do love that guy. I'm definitely going to buy his merch, because now you're doing an uphill battle. It's a lot easier when you're in front of somebody and just, did you see I did the flip? Isn't that a great flip? Buy this t-shirt. When you don't have when you don't have part A, part B is tougher. So you got to make yourself interesting online. But yeah, we got started with merch. I had a little bit of experience in dabbling in some kind of like shirt printing and stuff like that from high school. And my wife Luna has always been artistically inclined. She was actually she got her feet wet doing photography and wrestling. She was doing ringside photography. She did a couple of promos. She was the first person to take a picture of Timothy Thatcher as the Evolve champion. So that was her kind of way in, and my way in was more through the merchandise. And so we started experimenting, started making merchandise for some people, and that started to grow and grow and grow. And then, as I said, more just kind of hanging around, and you know, there's certain advantages to working in merch, i.e., well, hey, we got this box, we got to deliver full of t-shirts. I guess they're going to let us in early. And so, ta-da, you start rubbing elbows and start talking with people and making friends. And when Wayne Van Dyke was a name that, you know, we got along with very, very well, and he was a good dude. And so once we kind of were in with certain people, then, oh, yo, you should meet you should do merch with them too, and blah, 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 blah. And then eventually, like I said, just kind of hanging around and getting comfortable. And once I'm comfortable being obnoxious, then it started becoming like, oh, hey, you know, Zach, you're loud. Ever thought about doing ring announcing? And I'm like, I have no problem with that. And I started doing that. Now, let me ask something for you, because you've dabbled, you and I have dabbled in very similar circles in terms of the jobs that we've done in wrestling. When it was first asked of you to do any kind of ring announcing or anything along those lines, how did you first view that? Like when they're like, Jordan, we need you to announce this guy or this show or whatever. As soon as you're asked to get in the ring, you know, how are you viewing that the first time?
I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I mean, I started off kind of like you were saying. I found a way in any way I could. One of the companies, the first two companies I worked for, I saw they didn't have their own YouTube channel. They didn't film their own stuff. So I was like, hey, I can film your stuff and put even little match graphics and nameplates, and it'll look at least better than what you have now, which is like nothing.
Which is zero, yeah.
Yeah, maybe your girlfriend will film a half a segment and then it'll look bad. This is before everyone had a cell phone. I had my own camera. So I got in that way. And then
nice.
The other company was just simply, hey, man, need help setting up the ring? I know you do. Setting up the ring and putting the chairs up. And I'd always said, hey, I love, you know, not pressuring, not pushing. I never pushed it too much, but I love to do more. I can speak. I do stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy really helped it because I think they knew I could speak. And they needed a ring announcer one day. And I remember the first time the guy said it, I was like, really? Okay. And then just go to the races, man, and then just show that you can do it. And then, you know, you've shown you're reliable. And then, you know, I've gone from they don't even know my name to, you know, the company's SFWA. I was the longest standing ring announcer they had in the end of the company.
Excellent. And I felt very much the same way. I was, as soon as they were like, hey, we could use a ring announcer, would you mind? I was like, absolutely. I'll do that. Are you kidding me? But there are some people, and we're not going to name names here, but there's some people who don't feel that way and feel that ring announcing is below them.
Really?
And so, and that they should be in front of the camera more, and that anything less than that, anything less than being considered in-ring talent is an insult. And so as soon as I first started seeing that in particular companies or in passing, I told myself, I was like, not going to be me. So there has been, even as far along into wrestling as I have gotten, you know, through a series of luck and accidents and shrewd negotiating by other people, I would still, if a company was like, hey, we just need you to come and ring announce, don't worry about commentary, don't worry about anything else, I would still be like, yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, that's a job that needs to be done, and I think I'm decent at it. So that's one of those cases where, and I guess a lesson that we can both sort of share is you don't look down at those opportunities. And as I said, even when I had the opportunity of like, oh, would you want to be a manager for this guy? I talked with some people that I held in high regard, and they advised me like, don't worry about that. If it's needed, then great. That opportunity will be there, but focus on being the best at what your job is and not get down in the muck and do 1,000 different things, which I ended up having to do anyway. But that was one of those things where, like, as soon as ring announcing came in, I was like, if this is it forever, if this is as far as I go, and it's just I'm the ring announcer guy, great. This is amazing. If I told myself at 13 I was doing this, my 13-year-old head would explode. That's all that means to me. I'm good. But then it evolves, as you can attest. It evolved from there, and then next thing you know, it's commentary, and then commentary leads to, hey, what about this, or what about, could you make this into a character, blah 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 blah, and then next thing you know, I'm owning my own company. So
Absolutely.
dreams do come true.
Absolutely, man. No, I think you hit it on the head, man. That's why I'm still, like what you said. Obviously, we know people like that, but like it's still surprising to me because it's just I was so excited to just do anything. I would have been even probably content to a large degree just being around the thing and being the ring crew guy.
100, I 100% agree. The goal was be able to show up early and not be asked to leave. That was the goal. Was don't have the people running it or the wrestlers go
right now. Sweet.
Right, exactly. Don't have the talent go, you got to go. Yeah. As long as I was at that level, I'm like, everything else is just bonus. That's the one I want, and I got there. So I was like, all right, great.
Yeah, and then I'm a firm believer, and you're another great proof of this, of just paying dues and then doing those jobs because they lead to so much more. You know what I mean? I'm not a manager or a fake GM. Sorry, I don't really run those places without the ring announcing and then without the stuff before it.
Right. So. Well, and you show, you put it perfectly. You show your value. You and I've before the pandemic kind of shut everything down, I was really getting into the rhythm. I was doing the Paul Heyman before show speeches, and I really like that. I like being the center of attention. And so one of the things I would tell some of the younger talent is I was like, look, the greatest thing you can ever do is make yourself invaluable, because if you are great in the ring, if you're telling stories to fans and making the fans come in, then you can be as much of an asshole as you want. They can't fire you because you're too valuable. That's the key, is make yourself so valuable that they can't get rid of you. And so I think, that's a cynical way to look at it, but it's a similar thought process to what you mentioned. You come in, you're setting up the ring, and that's all you're doing is setting up the ring. Well, you're showing dependability. You're showing that you give a shit. All right, well, then something comes along. Hey, guy XYZ couldn't make it. Can you fill in for him doing whatever? Sure, absolutely. Great. You fumble a little bit. You figure it out. You get your bearings. Okay, I got it. I can do this job too. Great. Wonderful. Now you're going to do that. You're double dependable. Oh, hey, another show comes along. Hey, this guy, he's kind of feeling, you think maybe he could mentor you and you could take his job? Okay, sure. Because that, you be there. Don't go, well, I'm not really interested. I just came here to fold shirts. I'm not interested in anything else. Sorry. Like, no, you make yourself available for those types of opportunities, and they go a long way in making yourself valuable. Speaking of TED Talk, we should be getting paid for this. You and I are giving a real TED Talk here.
I think it's a lesson we learn about anyone that's kind of like in our field of just because there's a trajectory. I've said this before. It's definitely physically a lot harder to be a wrestler, but there's a trajectory. You go to a good school, you train, you get on the shows, you move around. There's not really a trajectory for guys like us, because it's like
true.
You can't get into a school to be a commentator. That's not really a thing.
No, you kind of have to
find your way around and wiggle into it.
You kind of have to have the gift of gab a little bit and just kind of improv-y skills. Like you said, doing stand-up, I'm sure gave you a huge advantage.
I think it helped. They're like, okay, because, maybe you've seen it too. Like, I've had people before try to, I can ring announce, and then they really can't. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm sure when they see a 19-year-old kid, like, I'd love to ring announce, Mr. Whatever. They're like, yeah, sure, kid. And then they don't find out, okay, no, he can actually physically, he can do this probably. More so than just anyone that thinks anyone can do it, which is not true.
Right. And again, it's not looking at it as a stepping stone, because I think we've both come across people who have viewed it as that, of like, oh, I'm just going to do ring announcing for these 2 shows, and then they're going to ask me to do something else. Maybe not. Maybe you're the ring announcer, and then that's it.
I was ready to ring announce during Mania week. You know, I had a couple things where I was a ring announcer. I was like, cool, yeah, I'm part of a Mania week. Sweet.
Exactly. So, I don't know. Again, we should be getting paid for this. We're giving valuable advice here of don't be a douchebag.
don't be a d-bag, and that gets you a long way too. That's the piece of advice I give to anyone. Like, just don't be a dick. Don't burn bridges. It usually gets you nowhere. Like, burning a bridge will not get you somewhere. Unburning it, not being a dick will get you somewhere.
True. No one's ever been like, we got to hire this guy because he keeps making everybody real mad every time he works somewhere. Everybody.
You see how he shit on one company? Man, I need that guy. He really knows how to shit on a company.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Mr. Zach Romero, is that your real name?
No, it is not.
I knew it.
It's not. There's a lot of people who believe it is. I've actually talked to some wrestlers who I was like, oh yeah, it's going to come from this and that, and it'll be under this name. And they're like, what? I go, you've been the Amazing Strongo for 10 years. What are you, you're offended that I'm not using my real name. No, actually that came from, before the wrestling days. I was doing a lot of stupid, YouTube videos, and, I was using my real name at the time. And I go into work one day, and my boss is like, oh, hey, I saw that video you did. That was really funny. And I had to put on my acting pants, and I was just like, oh, you did? That's interesting. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. But on the inside, I was like, no! So from that point on, I grabbed the name Romero. So that's not my God-given name. Another exclusive here for Kayfabe Corner.
Is Zach?
Zach is, yes. Zach is my true first name. I should have probably come up with something better, but I feel like I look like a Zach, so I couldn't change it.
What's Romero? What's the inspiration of Romero?
Oh, George Romero, 100%. I was always a big horror guy. I used to host a little YouTube horror review show back in the day, and all that nonsense. So it was always going to be Romero. Plus, I think Zach Romero has a nice ring to it. I always have.
I agree.
But yeah, so that's that. Again, you were an excellent interviewer. You're getting some real some hot tea out of my backstory here.
What are some of your favorite matches you've seen or called?
Oh Lord. Here's the thing. So my commentary is a acquired taste, let's say, because I am very obnoxious. I am very much a cartoon character. So calling some matches, like for instance, when I would do, I did a couple of, I was fortunate enough to do a couple of shows with Full Impact Pro, and anytime there would be like a hardest hits of FIP for whatever the show was, they would show these little clips. And you would hear Trevin, who I was doing commentary with, telling these incredible stories. Like he'd be like, oh, one man's adversity here coming up with blah, blah, blah. Can he conquer yet? And all you would ever hear from me is just sounds. Like he would be telling amazing stories, and I would just be like, like that's all my input was. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm just a dumb animal. That being said, I will obviously be biased. I've gotten to see just about every Punk Pro match that there's ever been. And
what match have you not seen?
There was a show in Indiana that I was not a part of. Okay. And so I didn't see all of those matches. Heard about them, but didn't actually see them. Let me see here. I can pull up some deep cuts here. I think anybody who's ever seen a match with Saif El Sabah should just consider themselves lucky, because he is immensely talented.
I saw one of his first at
getting to see Jamie Senegal versus Su Yung, and Su Yung winning with a giant foam hand. That was pretty kick-ass. Getting to see Eddie Kingston and John Davis for the first time ever was pretty incredible.
Where was that?
Punk Pro. That was
okay.
at
Nice.
that was at Take This to Your Grave back in 2018.
That sounds good.
Getting to okay. So here, story time. Not that there hasn't been enough already. So there's actually two stories. So one particular company that we won't mention that you and I have both worked for. There was a show that we were running, and I was doing the ring announcing for it and the commentary, and I was running behind the scenes. I was trying to. There were some new people that were going to be on the show, some new people on the roster. So I was grabbing their information before the show, their announcing information, because magically, I'm going to reveal this little piece, this little fun fact. Ring announcers, we don't magically know everyone's information. We have to go ask, and it's very uncomfortable. And so which by the way, I've officially announced this. I'm striking fight weights from my announcing. I don't give a shit what company I'm working for. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not announcing anybody's weight because I always get grilled on it, because I don't ask talent that I already have their info. I don't ask them multiple times. Like if you're wrestling on a show and I've gotten your information once, I'm sticking with that information. I'm not asking you every time I see you like, hey, anything change? I'm not doing that. So I've run into several problems of I'm going off a card from 6 months ago and I'm saying weighing in at whatever. And then after the show, that talent comes up to me and goes, I haven't weighed that in blah, blah, blah months. I've put on 15 pounds of muscle. And I go, okay. Or I screwed up one time and I announced somebody as like way heavier than they were and looked like an idiot. And then I had to go back and change it to the magic of editing. So I've just decided no more weights. I don't give a shit anymore. You're just you from your hometown, and hopefully you have an interesting name. So anyway, so I'm getting this information from this young man who's making his debut. And he's like, oh, my name is, blah, blah, blah. But, some of the kids I train with, like, call me Broccoli. And I go, excuse me? And he goes, yeah, I got a lot of frizzy hair. And so some of the kids call me Broccoli, but you can just call me, you can just announce me by regular name. And I was like, calling you Broccoli. And the look on this poor kid's face, he was terrified. He's like, well, you don't have to. I go, look, it's a Wednesday. We're in the middle of nowhere. Let's try Broccoli. See if it sticks. If it doesn't, next week I'll call you whatever the hell you want to be called. And we'll pretend like it didn't happen, and it won't. As far as everyone's concerned, it never happened. Okay. So this kid's match comes up, and I announce him like the goddamn ghost of Andre the Giant was coming out. Like, I pumped it up so big. And I was like, ladies and gentlemen, Broccoli! And that crowd went bananas. And I was so proud of that moment. And he lit up like it was Christmas. Like, he was like, yeah, oh, yeah! And it helped also. Kid was immensely talented. So that helped. It would have sucked if it was like, hey, great moment. Oh, he shit the bed. No, he was great in the ring anyway, so that just helped. But that gave him the confidence to be a character and kind of start running with that. So that was an excellent moment. That was a good feel-good moment. But huge match for me. One of my all-time favorites was when Dick Danger fought the technical alchemist David Mercury at Punk Pro. That was Dick Danger's debut at Punk Pro. The place was packed full of people that were all Dick Danger friends and family. So when they had that match, you would have thought it was fucking WrestleMania. Like, that crowd blew up. And it was a great match. I mean, David Mercury was Dick Danger's teacher, so it was like, oh, spoiler alert, the match was fantastic. It was great. And also, David Mercury could wrestle a pile of dirty laundry, and you'd be like, 5-star. That was the best match I've ever seen in my life. But it was incredible. It was an incredible moment. And another fun fact, I've known Dick Danger for a long, long time. And so prior to him wrestling, prior to him training, I knew him previously. And if I ever wind up dead under mysterious circumstances, immediately investigate Mrs. Danger, because I may be the reason why Dick Danger got into wrestling. And so she may blame me to this very day. But anyways, so getting to work with Dick Danger and seeing him get started in wrestling, and then having that kind of culminate at debuting at Punk Pro, going against his teacher, and having just a great match, and having an entire crowd full of people that were there for him was an incredible feeling. And that absolutely sticks out in my mind. And of course, anything I've ever gotten to see with John Davis, that's number 2. So yeah, that's the very, very short list of matches that holy shit have stuck out, and I'm forgetting 1,000 other ones that I'm sure I'm gonna get angry messages about. But that's a little story time.
Besides Punk Pro, any other companies that you really enjoyed your time at?
I did a little bit with IPW, which was interesting. Liked working with Ron Nemi a lot. He's a very, very interesting guy, very knowledgeable, and so easygoing in terms of like, because he's kind of he's done it all and seen it all. So like the like is kind of like over. He's just like, oh yeah, this will work. This will be great. I worked the Hardy County Fair. I did announcing for an IPW show. It was like a lucha show, and I got to announce Ultimo Dragon was coming out, and a little poop came out when I did that, because holy shit, it was Ultimo Dragon. IPW was very interesting to work with. GCW here in the South, I got to work with them. I actually, the old adage of wrestlers of always bring your gear, I had to live that myself. GCW had done a show at a food truck rally, and their ring announcer couldn't make it. And so I was there just kind of helping out and just sort of, kind of just there to support. And they were like, hey, do you have your stuff to like do announcing? And I was like, I could certainly get it. And so I happened to have a button up in the car. I had my suit jacket, and I was like, well, there we go. And so I ended up doing the ring announcing there. Got to work with Brawl USA. Actually, you know what? Hold on a second. I'm a big enough asshole, and I hope that you have this too. I actually have a list of all the companies that I've worked for. And
I have a master list of not only companies, but the match results.
Holy shit. Yeah, I haven't done that. I'm not that much of a psychopath.
I'm at 300 something, but that's just for attending. And then I have everything else broken down too.
Let's see. Oh yeah, Kaiju Big Battle. How could I forget? Kaiju Big Battle also did Queens of Combat up north, and I screwed up the ending of the main event. That was pretty fun. Having to be like, hi, please, I would like to come back. And they were like, yeah, I don't think that's necessary. I did do Shine in Chicago. Doing the Shine shows were great in Chicago, because if I'm not normal, I'm never normal. If I'm not the regularly scheduled announcer, I don't come in at like 100% me. I come in very like trying to be polished and professional, and just like, hey, I'm going to be, Howard Finkel here. I'm just going to come and just boom, boom, boom down the line. I'm not going to throw too much special sauce on it. I'm just going to deliver it and get out. Punk Pro, it's I've been there since the beginning, so I can be a little more myself and more goofy and kind of chit chat with the crowd a little bit. But if it's something like Shine, or this is my first time here, I'm not going to be like, I basically own the place. I'm not going to do that. So I did 2 Shine shows back to back. I believe it was Michigan and Chicago. And so in Michigan, I am straight laced. I am completely straight laced. Until like the last, I think it was the main event. We were in Michigan, and Allison Kay was wrestling, and she's from Michigan. And so when she came out, I put a lot of stank on it, and the crowd loved it. They were like, yeah, it's our girl. And she told me afterwards, she goes, I've wrestled here probably 100 times. I've never gotten cheered in my hometown. And I was like, I like to think I was a little baby part of that. But after that, then, the lesson gets taught to my dumb ape brain. I'm like, I can put a little sizzle on a steak, and maybe it's okay. And so when I got to announce Double D Rose for Shine, who was an amazing talent, but her entrance is, she's the one-eyed thick-thighed weapon of ass destruction. Night 1, I tried to say that as straight-laced as I could. Night 2, the spirit took over, and I got real big with it, and the crowd went bananas. And so I was like, okay, there's no more rules. I get to do what I want.
Can we get a little taste of it, Zach?
Oh, gee, okay. I can hold the mic back. I don't. You put me on the spot. I want to find what the rest of her announcing thing is, because I don't know what her hometown is. But anyway, it was like the one-eyed, thick-thighed weapon of ass destruction, double D Rose, and the crowd went fucking bananas. Because how does it not? When you get to say weapon of ass destruction, how do you not go bananas for that? Anywho, Kaiju Big Battle. Holy shit. Kaiju Big Battle, giant monsters fighting in a ring, and I have to do live commentary into a live mic so that the crowd can hear me, because I have to help tell the story because they're giant monsters and they can't really emote that great. So, very interesting, very nerve-wracking. And I got to call him with Billy McGurk, was the co-anchor for commentary for several of the shows. Billy brought me in as a special favor to Trevin Adams, and so those were interesting. And then a couple years ago in Tampa for a big convention, there was a kaiju show, and Billy couldn't make it, and I had to call it on my own in front of, no joke, probably 600 people. I had to call a kaiju show by myself, and I survived it. I did the whole damn thing, and didn't cause a riot or nothing got torn up. The only time it was shaky was right before the show started. Like, everything's prepped and ready to go. Okay, we're ready to go. And I'm standing behind the curtain, and they're playing this little 90-second vignette explaining, like, what's Kaiju Big Battle. And the vignette ends, and the music's playing, and the crowd's chanting Kaiju, and it's just me. I have to announce myself. I have to introduce myself. And then I'm walking out in front of 600 people, and it's go time. And as soon as the vignette ends and the music's playing and the crowd is chanting Kaiju, I start tearing up, and I feel a lump in the back of my throat, and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I blew through the curtain, and I was like, hey, and yeah, they don't know who I am yet. It doesn't matter. And right. And then by the end of it, I got to take pictures with somebody dressed as Godzilla, and Dizzy was there to support me in the crowd. She's one of the best fans ever. And so, that was a very big, scary moment. That is one of the prouder moments of my career, is one man doing the Joey Styles commentary for Kaiju Big Battle, which is like, it would be like if you were doing commentary for an episode of the Power Rangers, but it's all in Japanese, and you don't speak Japanese, and you just have to make sense of what you're seeing. Like, yeah, I'm the Green Ranger, and here's a Megazord. That kind of thing. So yeah, those were highlights, I would say, in the career would be those.
Very nice, very nice. Let's go back now. Let's talk about Punk Pro, man.
Okay.
When was it always something that kind of was gurgling in the back of your mind to start your own thing? What makes you finally make those steps? The early days of Punk Pro. Let's talk about it.
Well, something that I think you'll be able to identify with is sometimes it's just opportunity. So in like 2016, 2017, I gotta check my notes again. Back in the olden days, this is gonna sound so weird because of like how WrestleMania was supposed to be this year. So back in 2017, March 29th of 2017, WWE was in town. They were having WrestleMania in Orlando. And so everybody and their mother came down for Indie Week, basically. And so it kind of came to a head of like, hey, we have enough friends here, we could put on a show. And so we did in a shady storage unit that we will not go into further detail on.
Another place.
Yeah, with all kinds of talents that are like way above, like Martin Stone and like Dominic Garrini, like guys that were like,
Dom Garrini, yeah.
You have no business being at this. Like, what was our first show? We're doing it. Let me run down. I'm gonna run down the match card of the very first Punk Pro show. The Gymnasty Boys versus Ace Perry and Slade Porter. Mance Warner and Dale Patrick versus the Amazing Graysons. Darius Carter versus Jimmy Lloyd. Drennan versus John Cruz, whatever happened to that guy. Matt Nix versus Chris Crunk. Rhett Giddens versus Dr. Daniel Rockingham versus C.T. Brown versus Chris Castro versus Malachi Matthews versus Jaden Newman versus Owen Knight. We were very big into scrambles on day one. Ugly Ducklings versus Tech. Dominic Garrini versus Kurt Stallion. Ethan Case versus Martin Stone. There's just ridiculous. We look back now and it's like, how the hell do we have all those talented people on one show to start off, and no air conditioning. So that worked, and that's kind of been the feeling of every Punk Pro show. Is it's like, all right, we're really going on a limb here. Let's see, is this going to work? Are people going to like this? Are people going to shit on this? We're going to get weird with it. Is this going to function at all? And every time it does. And so we're like, all right, it's another victory. And this is going to sound very, very hokey. So I've asked a lot. I'm a very insecure individual. So I've asked a lot of our talents, like, does Punk Pro suck? Or is like, you have a good time? And they're like, that atmosphere is crazy. Because there's a weird one-upsmanship for every show. Like, it doesn't matter if it's the opening match or the main event. Every single match is like, yeah, we're going to outdo that one. And every show we're like, there's no way. And it still works. But we've had our share of controversies. For anybody who doesn't know, Punk Pro Wrestling is the company that had Izzy, the 12-year-old WWE superfan, get in the ring and fight Effie. We are that company. And despite some people shaming us for it or thinking that we should be shut down for it, we still hold that with pride. And technically, Leva Bates is involved too. She was teaming with Izzy, so it was a handicap situation. But no, still proud of that. But no, basically, so yeah, we just did it on our own. But the core philosophy of Punk Pro Wrestling is 50% just the best wrestling we can find. We want to put the best wrestlers in Florida, out of Florida. We've had plenty of cars come from out of state. We want the best wrestling we can put together. That's 50% of the company. The other 50% of the company is the craziest shit we can come up with. And so there's been time travel in our company. There's been a 12-year-old girl wrestling in our company. There's been superheroes and witchcraft and scrambles revolving around a piece of radical rock and gold medals. So yeah, 50% really great wrestling, 50% real weird shit. That's been the ethos of Punk Pro since day one. And
is that not on a t-shirt somewhere?
It really should be. Well, technically there's a shirt that says Punk Pro Wrestling, the rules are different here, which I think that kind of sums it up nicely. But yeah, that's basically the magic recipe of Punk Pro is the 50-50 rule. And the fact that John Davis, who is genuinely the scariest man I've ever met in wrestling, that's no joke, has told us on several occasions that he is not into silliness or craziness in professional wrestling, but he's like, it works here. He's like, I'm proud to be on the same show as time travel and, superheroes and stuff. He's like, I'm proud to be a part of that. And I was like, "Whoa." That's the biggest seal of approval that anybody could ever get, was that John Davis didn't go, I hate this. Like, that's the biggest trophy I could ever get. Move the Countryside High School Theater Thespian Award, move that off the shelf. John Davis not hating being part of Punk Pro, that's number one trophy on the case, on the mantle.
Talk to me a little bit about the secret shows that we've been seeing up on YouTube. I've
Yes.
been checking them out. Is there more to come? What was it like doing those? Did you enjoy doing those?
That was a very interesting experience. So we filmed 11 episodes of a secret show in an undisclosed location.
I couldn't tell
And
where that building was at all.
in the first 6 you almost couldn't, and then the second 6 you're like, oh, okay, that's where we are. Which that won't happen again.
Yeah, okay. That's why I was wondering if there was more to come. Because
there will be. We're going mobile, and obviously, once Florida stops setting records for COVID cases, there will be a second season of the Punk Pro Secret Show. I can guarantee you that. But we filmed all 11 episodes over the course of 2 days, and it was absolutely bananas. And seeing incredible talents wrestle multiple times in a day was just like, this is insane. But I think it worked. I think the experiment worked. In fact, it worked so well that I was like, man, if we could actually figure out like sponsorships to help offset some of the cost, I will just do these forever, because the ability to tell the kind of stories that we want to tell and showcase the talents we want to showcase, it's been an experiment that we've enjoyed a great deal. So yeah, the Punk Pro Secret Shows are on YouTube. If you YouTube Punk Pro Wrestling, they'll pop up. But multiple title defenses from John Davis, which are incredible. His match against Ron Bass Jr. is bananas. Ron Bass Jr. is still a rookie, and they go like Hoss style, and it's mind-blowing. Him and Hunter Law, John Davis and Hunter Law is incredible. Captain Nova gets a huge win and is like the ultimate space underdog story. We have our first ever all women's Get Your Shit In Scramble. So Get Your Shit In Scramble. A lot of independent wrestling shows have scramble matches. I read off the first scramble match of the first show that Punk Pro ever did. Scrambles are very plentiful in independent wrestling. However, the Get Your Shit In Scrambles are a little bit of a different breed. And they are for accolades, and in the current era, they are for a gold medal and a piece of the radical punk rock that they get to proudly display. It doesn't need to be defended. It's only awarded. It's like the Stanley Cup. But we want to be different. We want things to make sense in its own weird way. And so, yeah, I've really been proud of the secret shows. There were some talents I wish we could have gotten, but just obviously, again, the world is on fire. So it's kind of difficult to make travel arrangements possible. But I absolutely guarantee you there will be a second season of the secret shows. They're too weird and too wonderful not to continue. So that will be happening in the future, and we'll figure out a new undisclosed location and new rings.
So, not to give away any maybe future possible bookings here, but any dream matches that you haven't seen yet, that you haven't been able to put on yet, where like, oh man, those 2 or 4 or whatever would kill it?
So there's a couple of things on my wish list. Gabe Zilla and John Davis were supposed to wrestle 2 years ago, and John couldn't make it to the show, and we ended up getting Cole Radrick versus Gabe Zilla, which is another one of my absolute favorite matches of all time. And so that's still unchecked. I want Gabe Zilla and I want John Davis. I want Levi Everett to wrestle for the Internet Championship against Hunter Law, because I think it's hysterical that Levi Everett fight for a title that he doesn't understand because he's Amish. I want tag team championships in Punk Pro. So I want every good goddamn tag team going today in Punk Pro fighting for a tag title, because the tag team of Gnarly Adventure of Andrew and Carlos is one of the best tag teams going, and I'm pissed off that more people aren't aware of that yet. So I want the greatest stage for tag team that we can possibly put together and have them be a part of that. So there are some things that I certainly want, and mostly just as a fan, I wish I could be like, no, the boss. I just want to sit and watch those. Those will sound great. Yeah, those are. What about you? Is there anything from Punk Pro that you want from Punk Pro? I'll take a feedback card right now.
I'm putting me on the spot, sir. It's my show.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like I said, I really do enjoy some of the unique matchups. I mean, I saw the John Davis and Ron Bass junior match. And yeah, like, that's a match I wouldn't necessarily, even think of because, like you said, they're at such different stages of their careers, but it was really cool. So I love stuff like that. Um, yeah, you guys do some intergender stuff. You got some great tag teams. I like what you've done with Andrew and Carlos because you see a different side of them than what I think other promotions were doing. Even us, like, we just put them as their normal selves, and you guys have found a different niche. Like,
yeah, that also drives
awesome.
me nuts because I want them to wrestle as Gnarly Adventure everywhere, and they haven't yet. I don't get me wrong; it's on a billboard level, a sales level. It's great that we've got the like exclusive rights to Gnarly Adventure right now, but I don't give a shit. I want every wrestling company to see how great they are in this particular form, and if they can still be a trios with Carlos, Andrew, and Carlos's flannel shirt, then all the better. But yes, I appreciate your support and your viewing and spreading the word about Punk Pro. For better or for worse, we're still underground. We're trying to break out. We're trying to sell out so bad. We want to sell out so bad, and just haven't had the opportunity yet.
Well, speaking of support, let's talk also too. Fully Gaming.
Oh, there you go.
Gary J shirt here.
OG Gary J shirt.
And yeah, I don't know. Is this still available?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably. I would assume probably.
And I have several. I have a Nova, a Hunter Law, a Troy Hollywood. I have several of your stuff here. So do you come? Do you yeah, thank you. Do you come to the guys? Do they come to you, guys and girls, or how does the relationship usually kind of happen? Who does the first?
Makes the first move.
Yeah.
My wife can attest that I'm terrible at taking hints for that. So usually, no. It's usually a combination of things. Sometimes we'll approach talent and go like, "Hey, you really should have some merch because you're very talented. You're not making any extra money, and you should." But other times we've been approached by talents that are like, "Hey, I have an idea for a shirt. Can we do this?" And we go, "Yeah, sure, that sounds fine." We're still doing a lot of the creation of it from in-house, like literally in the next room over is where we like make the shirts and things like that and other merchandise and prayer candles and all kinds of other weird stuff.
I want a nice little tour video on your YouTube sometime. I want to see the...
we've really considered it. We'll figure it out. We'll spruce the place up a little and then we'll give a tour of how it happens. But no, it varies. And we try to make everything make sense for both sides. Like we want talent to make money. I wish we weren't. I wish we were assholes and we were like, we make all the money and I don't have to work a regular job. No. We want the talent to make money off their merch because that's ultimately what keeps a lot of wrestlers afloat. Like getting bookings doesn't always, unless you're like at that top tier part of the roster, and even then sometimes not, like you're really going to make most of your money doing merch. And so we've always wanted to kind of help with that. And so we try our best. There's some talents that for whatever reason it just didn't work out, and that's a bummer, but
what happens there? Is it just simply like coming to an agreement on money or disagreeing on what the merch might look like? Why would something almost happen and then not?
So that's a tough question to answer.
I'm just interested because that's one thing I don't have. I've never done really much of that, so I'm just kind of interested in like.
So sometimes it's just regular relationships where like sometimes the communication just kind of falls off because everyone's got their head up their own ass or they're busy with their own stuff. And so then you go like, oh, right, shit, we were supposed to do something. Damn it. Whoops. Now they've gone to another shirt place. Or sometimes, there's I wasn't expecting to get this deep into the paint here. There's an element of necessity in terms of like so once a talent figures out that like merch is key, it can sometimes be difficult to relay the certain importance of things. So perfect example, there's an artist that we work with named Buckshot. You know Buckshot very well. He's crossed paths with you in ring stuff before. Buckshot is a tattoo artist. He is immensely talented. We have used him on several occasions to create some designs and things like that for shirts and for other things that we've worked on for people. And as such, he's also worked on just freelance stuff for wrestlers. And there's been a few occasions when he'll show a talent like, oh, hey, here's this, and it's almost done. And they go, oh, cool. And then they just ghost him. And then next thing you know, a week later, he'll see it on Pro Wrestling Tees. His half-finished design is suddenly posted, and he's standing there going like, hey, I didn't get paid for this. So sometimes there's an element of that, of like the talent themselves goes like, oh, I got it. And maybe they don't think like, well, there's a bigger web here of like money should exchange hands and da-da-da-da. They just go, I got it. And then that's it. And then we never hear from them again. Or some just fall off. Some go like, I decided not to be a wrestler anymore. And sometimes it's us. Sometimes, like I said, we get bogged down with something. I'm the host of three podcasts.
I don't know how many.
Several podcasts. I'll say that. I'm a host of several podcasts. I've always got projects going on. So sometimes it's on me. Like, it's like, oh, we were going to do a thing and I forgot because I had this thing and I'm so sorry. And, you know, sometimes those things don't work out. And sometimes people get mad. We've gotten stuck with the bill before. We shipped to somebody who wasn't expecting it. And they were like, oh, I don't have room in my gear bag. Like, there's, you know, it's growing pains. We've been around for going on, I think 5 years now as a merchandise brand, and we're still ground up. We're still, you know, the bare roots of it. So it's complicated, unfortunately, but way more good than bad in terms of like, we've really helped to drive people to be characters. We've helped put money in the pockets of people who deserve to get paid more money. We've gotten real sacrilegious. We made an FE prayer candle that sold a bunch, and we're definitely going to hell. I don't know. It's been weird and wonderful, and I've enjoyed it immensely. And it's interesting to kind of like keep stretching your brain of like, all right, we got to make something else here. We can't just keep doing the same thing. And yeah, I don't know. It's a very weird venture that, again, if I could tell myself at 13 that I was doing, would have blown my mind. So.
Well, as of your old self, let's talk about your future self. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Great question. That's a really tough question now, because I don't know if you know this or not, but the goddamn world's on fire right now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. If you had asked me a year ago, I would be like, oh, Punk Pro's a household name and fully gimmicked. I don't have to work a regular job anymore. I don't know now. It's like, wrestling may not be a thing in 5 years. And I'm like, that was a weird ride. I don't know. I don't know where I'll be in 5 years. I hope I'm still involved in wrestling in some way.
Well, what would you have said back in February?
Well, good question. Okay, in February, I would have been like, well, Punk Pro is a household name, and you know, everybody loves us, and we're touring, and it's great, and Fully Gimmicked is now so huge that like Pro Wrestling Tees like pees on themselves because Fully Gimmicked is so great. And there's like a Zach Romero Jr. running around, or whatever the girl equivalent of a junior running around. And I've got like 3 cats, and I've got a smoking hot bod, and I can speak like 3 languages, and I get high fives everywhere I go. Like that's me in 5 years as of February. 5 years as of now, I hope I'm still alive.
You definitely don't want those high fives no more.
Don't high fives, flat out, full stop. That's not happening. Maybe I go to a theme park again. Maybe.
You still get those cats. That's doable.
True. I mean, yeah. The 2 I have now are kind of dicks. One of them has been screwing up my lighting rig here for my interview with you. So I don't know. I hope I'm still alive in 5 years. That sounds horrible. Oh my God, that sounded so bad. I'm going to be put on suicide watch now. That was such a bad answer.
And not that you want to kill yourself, we just can't guarantee where we'll all be.
That's true. Thank you. That's the disclaimer. I'm not threatening that. I'm saying, have you seen the world? That's all I'm saying.
Oh man, what? I guess even this question is hard to ask now. Uh, in February, if someone had asked you
Yes.
about getting into the business, both either as a wrestler or more in like our line of work, what advice do you give people starting up in pro wrestling in February?
It's excellent question. Way back when. My greatest advice would be to immediately upon deciding that you're going to be involved in wrestling, whether it be as a wrestler, as a referee, whatever, figure out a character. That doesn't mean you have to be a cartoon character, but figure out a character of some kind, because the greatest disservice that you can do yourself is go through all the hard work of training and wrestling school and the whole 9 yards, and you have zero character. Because unfortunately, it's not the 60s and 70s anymore. So like a promoter is typically not going to give you a gimmick. You know, when you get started at like XYZ wrestling company, the promoter's not going to be like, kid, you got a great look, so you're going to be Leonidas and da-da-da-da, and you come out wearing this and you do this. Like, that's just not going to happen. It's going to be like, what's your character? And you'll go, I have my name on my butt of my tights. And I assume Vince McMahon will be calling me shortly. Don't do that. Have some kind of character, something that people can gravitate towards, something that'll help to tell your stories, something that'll help sell merch so you can have a little money in your pocket. Come to the table with a character. When Dick Danger was going through his school, we were talking about character stuff from day one. So that even influenced his training, that he was like, okay, everyone in my class is learning this and I'm learning this, but also I need to figure out this because that's going to make sense.
I'll even admit, when I first saw Dick Danger on like I think the pre-show at Tampa Bay, I thought he was somebody from another company because he was the only one with like a full character.
He was ready to go.
Because I was like, oh, this dude's obviously like he's got the helmet, he's got the gear, like he must be from another company.
Whatever, yeah.
Because he was so much more formed as a person or as a character than a lot of the other people. So
right, and that made a huge difference because like you have to look at it from the point of view of a promoter. The promoter picked out however many people that he wanted on the show. He was like, these 5 guys are my guys. But you need other people to fill in those missing spots. So there comes a time where it's like, okay, promoter, you got 5 mystery talents that you didn't pick yourself that they need to fill the voids here. Which one of these guys do you want to pick? And if it's create a wrestler 1, 2, 3, 4, and then pocket-sized Evel Knievel, you go, well, I don't know if he's good, but at least he's got a look. So having a character already figured out or something along those lines is only going to benefit you. And even if it's not like your big thing, even if you're like, well, I'm not really a big theatrical person, I'm not like going to be like a larger than life character, I'm going to let my in-ring stuff do the talking, that's totally fine. Still have a character. Have something that can be the window dressing to what you're doing in your ring, because you can't put a really good snapmare on a t-shirt. Like, you got to have something else to kind of form with it to make people, want to support you or want to listen to what's going on or go, ooh, I want this guy to win, or ooh, I want this guy to lose, like, or gal, or whatever the case may be. So come up with some form of a character when you're first starting out, and that's going to pay off in dividends, even if you don't keep it. That's the other thing too. I'm going to blow up his spot. I don't give a shit. He's not on the show. The precursor to Dick Danger was we were talking about him doing like a Little Mac from Punch-Out gimmick, that he was going to be like an undersized fighter, and his name was Johnny Punch So Much. That was going to be his name. And we had come up with this whole like Punch So Much legacy and lineage, and like his grandma was a fighter and all this other stuff. We had this whole thing figured out of like he's going to come out with the robe and the boxing gloves and da-da-da-da. We had this whole thing figured out, and then we just decided halfway through like, we're going to try this instead. And then Dick Danger came a thing, and we started talking about that and blah, 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 blah. And then that became, like you said, as soon as his like practice pretend like, all right, here's your training wheels match, he already had a full thing going. Like, even if you don't keep, you're not married to a character, but have something coming into it just so you've got something to build off of. And then, like I said, halfway through you might go, hey, this sucks. And then you decide to throw it out and do something. That's fine. But have a character from the starting block. It's only going to benefit you.
It's gonna help you stand out because after you see 12 matches, he was one of the few people that like if you had been like quickly who made an impression. Like I remember that did Danger Dude because of the helmet and the name and the you know what I mean more so than just Billy Billerson who had black trunks and
John
soundproof, but
yeah, exactly. Like John Smith was fine, I guess, but yeah, little baby pocket Evil Knievel, that was pretty great. Like that helps you stand out. So that's our TED Talk. Again, you're getting this for free. You really should be thanking Jordan here for putting this together. The seminar does not come cheap normally, but we're cutting you all a deal here.
Twofer.
That's right. You get to hear both of us wax poetic about not saying no to opportunities of like, hey, go pick up that piece of wood and put it on the ring. Like, okay. Well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first time I did it, even just to touch a ring.
I had that same emotion too until I had to help disassemble a ring and take it down 2 flights of stairs in Chicago. And I was like, hey, this shit's for the birds.
I haven't done stairs. I've done long, like you got to park here and then like, but yeah, I don't think I've done stairs. So
yeah, stairs are terrible. My legs were on fire for the next 3 days afterwards. That's my advice: is be a character.
All right. One of the last questions here. It's not one I ask always, but I want to ask you: seen any good movies lately?
Oh, good question. Actually, here I'll do my little plug here. Hold on. So I stumbled upon this on Amazon, but it's called Dude Bro Party Massacre 3. It is outstanding. It is a very, very weird film. It's a parody of the college slasher film genre. It's called
new, though, isn't it? Isn't it a new film?
Yeah, it was made in, I think, 2018, I think.
They have a VHS copy of it?
Yes, they do. That was a special edition. And this one is actually signed by the crew because I'm a big dork and I collect VHS. But it's called Dude Bro Party Massacre 3, but it's the only one. It's supposed to be like a sequel, but it's literally the only one. But it's hysterical. It's really well done. It captures a lot of the actual elements of like slasher films from that genre and does a very good job of parodying it. It's just so absurd and wonderful. So I highly recommend it. Dude Bro Party Massacre 3 from 5 Second Films. Very, very highly recommend.
I'm just mad at the guy. I always love that idea of doing a sequel without any previous movies. Like I did a short film called Loose Cannon Cop 5, just referencing the first 4 that didn't exist. You know what I mean?
Well, and allegedly for Dude Bro Party Massacre 3, there was like 5 writers, and they all were in charge of writing different scenes, but none of them could communicate with each other. So when they came together, they were like, "Oh boy, how do we make this work?" And they do. It works out beautifully. So
nice. I've been meaning to check that out. That's one I haven't seen, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. It's very, very funny.
Any personal plugs here, man? Of course, we got to talk about Punk Pro Fully Gimmicked podcast.
I was just going to say, so obviously fullygimmick.com for merchandise. We've got all kinds of fantastic wrestler merch. We just dropped our first Kylan King design. There's been one for Lexi Gomez for to help her out. She's been having she just recently had some family trouble, and so we were basically putting some money together for her. So yeah, fullygimmick.com, all kinds of merchandise there. As for podcasts, holy hell, I am part of the Wrestling Nerds Radio Network. So you can find us on SoundCloud and Spotify and all other podcasting platforms. I co-host the IndieCast with Chad Allen, which is a very weird, supposed to be wrestling show, mostly pop culture show. And I also co-host a podcast called Frightful Failures, also on SoundCloud, which is a really big bad movie podcast where we take an old movie and a newer movie, which might have some kind of connection. We watch them both, and then we compare and contrast. and it's and we fixed them, and they're all very, very shitty. We did an episode that was Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and we had to discuss both of those, and youchies, not good. I know a lot of people have nostalgia for them. Those movies have problems.
A little bit.
So Frightful Failures on SoundCloud. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm boring. Don't worry about me. Follow Punk Pro Wrestling and Fully Gimmicked on Twitter. They're much more interesting. And go find Punk Pro Wrestling on YouTube. You can watch The Secret Show. You can watch Effie chokeslam an 11-year-old girl in the ring, and everyone get real mad at us. You can watch that. That's all on the YouTube channel. And yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Thank you, Jordan, for having me on the show. I don't do interviews terribly often, so this is an interesting experience, and I feel like I've said too much. And might be on Suicide Watch after this, so that's alarming. And I also feel like I shit talked a lot of wrestlers, and I didn't mean to. So I'm fired. But anyway,
we're not burning bridges. You burned so many bridges.
I really did. For starting it off like, no one ever gets hired from burning bridges. Oopsie doodle, I burned them all. But it was an absolute pleasure, and I'm thrilled to be in the mantle of Kayfabe Corner guests now during a very strange time. And again, I think I speak for all of your guests when I say, in 5 years, I hope we're all still alive.
I know. This started out as live interviews at shows. I only got 2 of those, and then the rest have all been over Zoom.
Hey, you take what you can get. You're at least you're spinning something into something. That's important.
Absolutely, man.
It's those improv skills of yours again. More dancing. Yeah. When in doubt, dance. That seems to be your motto here.
It's a meanie. So for Mr. Zach Romero, thank you so much, man. It's always been a pleasure talking to you. This is JPO Jordan Pierce Owens of Kayfabe Corner. Of course, subscribe, you know the usual shtick. And as always, keep it kayfabe.